whose love this world has long conceived in faith, received with love, come kneel beside this child of God. Come kneel beside this child of God. Thank you.
Almost didn't want to get up. I just was soaking that up. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Well, it's a treat to see all of you here today, and enjoying getting things ready for the Christmas Eve service and thinking about all the different things that we are celebrating during this season. And one of the things that I am aware of is that as we look at the different metaphysics of not just the story from the Bible of Christmas, but also just an understanding that there is a thing going on with each of us that is awakening. And that's really, I think, the essence of what our purpose is here in life, is to awaken. And the story really is about our awakening. And it's an awakening of our soul to who we were created to be and who we are in possibility and potential. This week I decided I was going to talk about the shepherds, and metaphysically, and then also the Magi, or what's been called the wise men, and also the star. And Lissy gave me a wonderful story that I want to share with you. She said, do you know that what would happen if it had been 3 wise women instead of 3 wise men? Well, they would have asked for directions, 1. They would have arrived on time, 2. They would have helped deliver the baby, and they would have cleaned the stable, and they would have made a casserole, and they would have bought practical gifts. I love that. So we've been looking at this story from a metaphysical perspective over the last several weeks, and I want to read to you again just to kind of refresh our memory, and also partly because it's important and valuable for us to realize that in these are images and words that really do have something to do with and really resonate with some aspect of our consciousness. And so we're actually learning to tune into those. So today, let me find my spot again. And so in those days, a decree went out from Caesar Augustus, and by the way, I'm reading from the 2nd chapter of Luke, that all the world shall be enrolled. And this was the first enrollment when Quirinius was governor of Syria, and all went to be enrolled, and each to his own city. And I'm going to skip down to number 8 down here. And in that region there were shepherds out in the field, keeping watch over their flocks by night. And an angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them. And they were filled with fear. And the angel said to them, be not afraid, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall come to all the people. For to you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who is Christ the Lord. And this will be a sign to you. You will find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes and lying in a manger. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host praising God and saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace among men with whom he is well pleased. So I'm going to take a second and just take a deep breath. When you hear that, what do you notice and feel in your body? Anything? Connection? What else? Peace. What else? Hope. Hope. What else? Yeah. So it does resonate with us on some level. And whether it's a conscious level or an unconscious level. You see, one of the things that actually got in conversation last week, I think it might have been Lissy, I don't remember, but one of the things that I think sometimes people get hooked on is this idea of asking, well, is this really true? Is this really true? And I'm going to suggest to you that it doesn't matter whether it is a fact or not, because it is true. See, what's presented here is not necessarily facts. Now, it may be facts. It may be very factual that all of this happened. But the reality is that if you think that it has to be factual in order for it to be true, you're missing the mark. Because there's a difference between what is really truth and what is factual. So it may be a fact that someone has a cold. But it's not the truth. It's not the truth of who we are. It's not the truth of our nature. And so what we're working with here is not, is this factual? Did this really happen? Because that's really, in many ways, that is our ego consciousness that says that it has to have this proof out here of something. Does that make sense? And so these are really internal kinds of things, and they're a way of helping us to really tune into an awareness of what's going on in our consciousness as we begin to unfold in our spiritual nature. And I love how it is so rich with imagery and rich with beautiful symbolism. If you think about it, when I heard this and you thought about this, could you just imagine and see shepherds out on a field somewhere and see them tending to their flock, and sheep kind of milling around, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this angel appears. And my image, of course, is it appears up in the sky. But I'm going to suggest to you that that's just simply a recognition that there's something higher that's trying to come through. There's an insight, there's an awareness, there's an aha moment, you might say. There is a divine awareness or divine idea that's being expressed. And so the shepherds actually watching over their flocks, within you, there's a part of you that is observing. And what is it observing? To me, the shepherds represent that observer within us. And we have an observer within us that is observing the sheep, and the sheep represent our thoughts. They're just the ongoing thoughts that we have. And we're just going about our business through life, and there's a part of us that actually is involved in life and really caught up in it and wrapped up in it. But there's a part of us that is actually available to us that can just simply step back and see and watch what's going on. And also, if you take a moment, you can actually look and see the thoughts that you're having right now, can't you? Are you busy in your thoughts? Or are you able to observe them? Just take a second and see. Can you just step back from whatever thoughts are coming into your mind right now and just be the one who's observing it? And to me, that represents, the shepherd represents that part of us that's able to do that. And the angel represents an awareness that can come to us and through us on a more spiritual level of good tidings. And good tidings is really an understanding and awareness that I have thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts. It would be one of those little seedlings of awareness that we have that says, yeah, these thoughts, I have these, they're valuable. There are times that it's important for me to be conscious of them and to be aware of them. But that's not the wholeness of who I am. That's not the real This is a reflection of something that's going on a deeper level. And so the angel represents that little voice inside of us that knows that there's something more than what we're seeing out here. Does that make sense? So I just love the imagery of that. And it really is a valuable practice to move into that place of the shepherds and to really be in that place of observing our thoughts. And then it's also being open to higher understandings or insights or awarenesses that come through our inspiration, that come through our intuition. Metaphysically, when we're looking at the Christmas story, we're talking about the birth of Jesus. And Jesus, according to Charles Fillmore, metaphysically is the I in man. Let me say that again. This is kind of interesting. Jesus is the I. It is the self. It is the directive power raised to divine understanding and power and I am identity. And so the angel is proclaiming that there is something that is awakening within us, that is coming forth. And it is not just this identification we have with who we think we are, but it is the I am within us. So take a moment now, if you will, and notice your thoughts. See if you can observe them. And then just ask yourself the question, who's having these thoughts? Who's having these thoughts? And see if you can breathe into that awareness and that place in you that notices, and that place in you that says, well, I'm having these thoughts, of course. Well, who's the I? What is the I? Notice the I am. Feel yourself connected to that sense of I am that is beyond the thoughts. That is more than the thoughts, and it's actually even more than the one that is observing. It's actually behind even the one that's observing. So these are exercises in consciousness, whether you recognize it or realize it or not. They're stories about our consciousness, and they're ways for us to really have an image that out here somehow represents some aspect of what can and does go on in our own individual consciousness. And our divine nature is really an expression of that essence of our being. You see, we are created in the image and after the likeness of the divine. And you think about the word being is, when you say being, really you're saying I am, right? And so this is reflective of that essence that all of us have, and that is a part of our nature. And it is an awakening to that, and we're moving more in that direction to really experience and express more of the I am, and learning how not to necessarily get caught up in all of the busyness, I guess you might say, of our thinking nature, and being identified with that. You know, in this way, this is it's pretty Zen in a lot of ways, isn't it, when you really think about it? But I've really been reflecting on a lot of the work of Eckhart Tolle, and what I've been really gaining from his understanding about this. And there's some great awarenesses on this. If you're not familiar with the work, A New Earth, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose, it is absolutely one of the most amazing life transformative and consciousness transforming works. And I've been kind of going through it again and going, oh yeah, I remember that part. remember that awareness. And so what we're learning is to distinguish between what he calls the absolute and the relative. We have a tendency to identify ourselves with the relative world. And the relative world is made up of all of our thoughts and feelings and beliefs about what's going on out here in the world. And so there's relative facts and truth, but then there's the absolute. And the absolute is the essence of our nature, and the absolute is really unchanging, and the absolute is born in every one of us. And so the good news of this scripture, it says, to all people. So it's not just about a particular person who was born at a particular time in history that exhibits all of these divine qualities, but it is actually something that is open and is a part of and being revealed to all people. And it's something that happens within each and every one of us. And it's a part of our spiritual process to unfold these divine qualities. So I'm going to say a little bit more about that, but I want to move over into Matthew. See, there's only two places in our Gospels that really talk about the birth of Jesus. That's in Luke and in Matthew. Lost my spot. Let me see. It's over here. Here we go. Matthew. Let's start with Matthew chapter 2, verse 1. Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we saw his star in the east and are come to worship him. And when Herod the king heard it, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And gathering together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ should be born. And they said unto him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written through the prophet, And thou, Bethlehem, land of Judah, art in no wise least among the princes of Judah. For out of these shall come forth a governor who shall be shepherd of my people in Israel. And so Jesus being born, whose name really means Jehovah, which is the I am consciousness. And so Bethlehem actually is, metaphysically, we talked a little bit about this last week, Bethlehem is the house of bread. I thought that was really an interesting understanding. The house of bread. But that actually represents divine substance. It is that which actually is creating and forming, out of which all things are created and formed and shaped. It is actually at the essence of our metaphysical understanding and teachings about abundance and prosperity, that all things are shaped and formed out of this divine bread or substance. And so it is really that our divine nature is connected to and coming forth out into the world in ways that are that are life-enhancing. To me, bread is, of course, I'm actually kind of swearing off of bread these days, but but interestingly enough, that's not totally true, because I just recently made some delicious gluten-free, low-carb bread, and I need a new recipe. I've got some other things I want to do with it, but it's been pretty, it turned out pretty good. So bread is something that really feeds us. It is the divine energy that feeds us. Charles Fillmore called it substance, but more recently we've been talking about it in terms of energy. It is the divine energy. And the more we can tune into our awareness about that divine energy, and that we are actually being brought forth as energy, through energy. This is a part of that story also, of the unfolding of our unique divine nature. And he talked about, Charles Fillmore talked about Herod and the Herod consciousness. Herod actually represents our identification with our ego. We have an ego, and that is that part of ourselves that is a concept that we have about ourselves. It's a belief system. And the thing that we need to understand is that there are beliefs that are based in truth. There are beliefs that are factual, but they're not necessarily always the same thing. Does that make sense? And so when we're looking at this, we have an ego consciousness, which is who we think we are. And who we think we are sometimes gets in the way of our being able to experience the truth of who we are. We create these identifications with the roles that we play. Eckhart Tolle talks about this in his work. We play these roles. I get to play the role of minister sometimes. I get to play the role of husband. I get to play the role of a man. And I get to play the role of Tony Roebuck. And all of those are ways that I have of describing who I am, but they're not who I am. Because who I am is something even deeper and more significant than any roles that I play. They're deeper and more significant than any of the concepts and belief systems I have about myself. So I might have a belief system that says that I'm wonderful, I'm great. And I might have a belief system that says I'm really worthless and no good. Or I might have a belief system that says, you know, I'm a great speaker. Or I might have a belief system that says, oh, I'm a terrible speaker. I have a little bit of all of that at one point or another. Don't you, in some ways? Those are just our beliefs that we hold. But they're not necessarily the truth. Now, we may demonstrate those belief systems in our lives. They may show up in ways in our lives. In fact, they will show up in ways in our lives. They will show up one way or the other. But they're not the truth of who we are. And so part of this is learning how to tune back into that place within us where we identify with the I am, with our wholeness, with our essence. And that essence is, out of that essence, all of our possibilities unfold. And that's exciting. I mean, that's a tiding of great joy. That there's more to me than all these little voices that I have going on inside of me. That's great news. It's great news from you. You are more than that little voice inside of you that's telling you you can't, or you shouldn't, or you won't, or it's not done. You are more than all of the negative self-talk. You know, Herod really represents that part of us that's trying to keep things in control. Now, the wise men, Magi actually was the original term that was used in Scripture, and it was translated in the King James Version as wise men. And Magi really were men who came from the East. They were followers of Zoroastrianism. That's easy for me to say, right? And that was a very ancient religion that really was based a lot in astrology, but also had some real scientific aspects to it. And they were actually scientists in some ways, but they were mystics. You might call them some of the early alchemists, you might say. And I was looking at and reflecting on the Magi, and traditionally we've been taught that there were 3 wise men, right? Well, there's nowhere in Scripture that says how many wise men there were. And as a matter of fact, it came to me that I was doing some study, and I discovered that in the Eastern Orthodox Church, there are not 3 wise men. There are actually 12 wise men. And I really, that resonated with me because there are 12 tribes of Israel, right? And later there are 12 disciples. And, as Charles Fillmore reflected, there are 12 divine qualities that are within each and every one of us. And so it occurs to me that the wise men, the Magi, the magicians, that's where the word magician comes from, you do realize, Magi. Magic comes from the word Magi. The magicians really represent these divine qualities that are coming to really pay homage to our divine nature. And they're coming and they're being led by a star. Now the star represents the divine light of intuition. Light has always been representative of illumination. It is spiritual understanding and awareness, and we're being guided to move into a place where we can really experience more of the I am within us and experience those divine qualities. We talked a little bit about those qualities last week. The 12 powers, as Charles Fillmore calls them, there's faith and there's strength, there's love, there's wisdom, there's understanding, there's power, there's imagination, there's will, there's zeal, there's life, there's renunciation. Did I get them all? I don't know if I missed it. I said love, right? Didn't I? No? You didn't count? So there are these unique divine qualities, and there is an aspect within us that actually is always, in some way, honoring and trying to bring forth these divine qualities. And so one of the reasons why it's been thought traditionally that there were 3 wise men is because there were 3 gifts. And the gifts were gold and frankincense and myrrh, right? And those gifts, metaphysically, actually represent spirit, soul, and body. And so they were really honoring the Christ with spirit, soul, and body. You could also say it represents the conscious, the subconscious, and the superconscious levels of mind. And there was a question last week about the superconsciousness. And the superconsciousness is that part of our mind that is actually always connected to and always focused toward our unique divine nature. Our subconscious mind is pivotal. It can be focused toward our divine nature, or it can be focused out into the world. And we can take identity from things out here in the world, or we can take identity from our divine nature. And that's in our subconscious level of mind. And we experience the superconsciousness through the subconscious level of mind. And then there's the conscious level of mind, and that's all the mind chatter of what's going on out here, right? So, to me, they represent, those 3 gifts represent that our divine qualities are being embodied by giving forth on all levels of our nature to our unique divine nature and identifying with our I am, identifying as one with something that is our own creative source and our own divine nature. So can you see yourself now and imagine and see that I am nature within yourself? Can you begin to recognize that you have an energy within you that is a consciousness of faith, a consciousness of understanding, and are you open to allowing that to unfold? And how does that show up in life? How does that show up for you? How can you experience more of your unique divine nature? Well, interestingly enough, it's usually when we find ourselves most challenged. Anybody have any challenges? So think about any challenge that you have and notice whether you're approaching that challenge through the voice of Herod or through your divine qualities. And can you look at that particular experience and recognize that you may have a challenge out here, but is that the truth of who you are? And can you separate yourself from the idea that the problem is the real? One of the things I love about this idea, this understanding, of course, is that I love that saying that, we need to stop telling God how big our problems are. We need to tell our problems how big our God is. And the star represents the east. Interestingly enough, the wise men came from the east, but the star was in the east. Isn't that interesting? So they came from the east, and yet the star is in the east. And the east always represents our internal nature. It represents moving within to that place within us where we really connect with something higher and where we can tune into our unique divine nature, where we can take our sense of identity away from identifying with things out here in the world and begin to really identify more with that unique divine nature of our spirit, of our Christ nature. And so I want to invite you to really meditate on, reflect on this idea as we go through the Christmas season of how am I approaching my spiritual unfoldment? How am I approaching my challenges in life? How am I approaching it as a voice of one who's really trying to control? Or am I approaching it through an understanding that there's something in me that has a stronger, clearer way of expressing? After the Magi went to see Jesus, they were guided in a dream to return to their homes a different way than go to Herod. And symbolically, there's a different way for you and I to look at and to deal with difficulties and challenges in our lives. And so this is really symbolic of really taking a different look at what's going on. So I invite you this week, whatever's going on in your life, whatever difficulties or challenges you're having, see if you can actually listen to that still small voice inside of you for a different route. Rather than going through the ego consciousness of trying to say, trying to make the situation be the way you think it's supposed to be, perhaps there's an insight that can be gained. Perhaps there's an aha moment. Perhaps there's something knocking at the door of your consciousness trying to express another level of your unique divine qualities, whether it be faith or strength or understanding or imagination or will or zeal. We're going to celebrate these different divine qualities in our Christmas Eve service, and so I hope you'll come and join us as we begin to open up more understanding and awarenesses about how we can really embody each of these divine qualities in our lives. And then next week on Sunday during the service at 11 a.m., we're actually going to talk about the metaphysics of Santa Claus and more about the gifts of Spirit. So that's our lesson for this week, and let's move into our meditation time.
When I look in your eyes, I see the beloved looking back at me. And when I stand next to you, I can feel the beloved in you. You are in my soul, you are my inspiration. With you in my heart, I am never alone. We are one, there is no separation. When I rest in you, I'm home. When I touch your heart, I feel the beloved touching me. And when I open my heart, I open to the beloved in you.
So let's take a nice deep breath and just breathe into the heart space. And as you breathe in and out, know that you're breathing in and out of that place where we are most open and receptive to knowing and feeling and experiencing our unique divine nature. That Christ child. That place in us where we are much like a tender child, but at the same time filled with the divine greatness, the divine magnificence, the divine beauty, the oneness. And as you breathe in, just breathe in and just let the words, I am, resonate in your awareness. And as you breathe out, let an expression of a unique divine quality that you would like to see and experience more in your life. And so you might breathe in, I am. And as you breathe out, just say the word love. And just sit with that for a moment. And as you breathe in, hear the words and feel the words, I am. And feel that place in you where you experience your I am. And as you breathe out, express the word faith. And feel what it feels like to be faith. And as you breathe in the word I am. And as you breathe out the word power. And be open to feeling and knowing and being the power of Spirit at work. Breathing in the I am consciousness of oneness and no separation, and breathing out a divine quality that you would like to experience more in your life. And know that it is not only there for you, it is a part of you and part of the expression of you. Thank you, Blessed Spirit, for all of these gifts. Thank you, Blessed Spirit. Thank you, I am within me. Thank you, Christ child in me. Take a nice deep breath now. Breathe into the heart space. Take another nice deep breath and let your awareness return to this room, this time, this place, being present as your I am. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes.